Easter at my parents' house always felt like stepping into a stage play I hadn't rehearsed for. The air smelled of clove and starch and something tighter expectation. Loretta greeted me at the door with a kiss on the cheek and a quick glance at my clothes. "You didn't wear the lavender blouse. I didn't think it mattered." She smiled thin and practiced. "You'll wish you had when we take the family photo. Did you bring the offering envelope I transferred online?" "Same amount as last quarter." She paused. "Pastor Dwyer said the building fund's still short. I told him we'd be stepping up this year." I said nothing. I just went to the kitchen and unpacked the dinner rolls I brought, aware of the buzz in the living room, Edwin talking too loud, Iris laughing in her way that only shows up at holidays. Dinner started with grace, led by Edwin. He thanked God for families who give without counting the cost. I chewed in silence. Mid-meal. Loretta said Pastor told me how rare it is these days to see second-generation givers, but we raised you right. I looked up. "I give what I can, but I won't be increasing this year." The table went quiet. Loretta's voice softened dangerously sweet. "Don't be small, Calla. This isn't about money, it's about legacy. It's my money." Her face changed. "You wouldn't have a dime if not for us. We gave you everything, your values, your education, your start. And this is how you repay us. I'm not repaying anyone. I'm giving what I believe in." She stood, walked toward me, and then she slapped me. No one moved. Iris didn't even put down her fork. I rose slowly, took my bag, and walked out. The air outside felt cold against my cheek. I didn't cry until I reached the curb. Behind me, the front door closed like a punctuation mark. Maya didn't say anything when I showed up with an overnight bag and tired eyes. She just handed me a mug of tea and cleared space on the couch. The next morning, I replayed Pastor Dwyer's voicemail. His tone was friendly, but the message wasn't. "Calla just wanted to check in about the building fund. We've received 15 out of the usual 25. Let me know if there's been a delay." He didn't ask how I was, didn't mention Easter, just the money. I played it again. Maya raised an eyebrow. "They think your parents give that money." "But it's me," I said. "It's been me for years." I opened my laptop and pulled up the church's annual donor report, one of those glossy PDFs Loretta always forwarded in December. Top donor tier over $25,000. The Lansing family, the Mitchells, the Vance family. Not Calla Vance, just the Vance family. I clicked through older years. Same thing. My individual giving $15,000 annually divided quarterly, never credited to me. It had all been wrapped into their image. "They've been erasing you in plain sight," Maya said quietly. It landed like a weight. I wasn't just excluded. I'd been used. "I thought I was giving back," I whispered. Turns out I was just filling in their story. I printed out my donation confirmations, every quarterly receipt, every automatic transfer. I opened a new folder on my desktop and labeled it Donor Records. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet, but I needed the truth somewhere they couldn't alter it. That night, as Maya made dinner, I opened the church contact form. I didn't write anything, just stared at the blinking cursor. I wasn't ready to speak, not yet, but for the first time I wasn't afraid to. I called Lazretta 2 days later. I had rehearsed every word, trying to keep my voice calm. Factual, maybe even kind. She answered on the second ring. "Calla," she said, her tone clipped. "I was wondering when you'd come to your senses." I ignored the jab. "Why is the church listing all my donations under the family name?" A pause. "What are you talking about?" I checked the stewardship reports. My $15,000 a year isn't credited to me. It's credited to the Vance family. Her sigh was deep theatrical. "Oh, sweetheart, that's just how they list it. It's not about who gives what. It's about presenting a united front. We're a family. We give as a family. I give from my own account, from my salary. This isn't about unity, it's about accuracy. Don't be petty, Calla. You're acting like this is some corporate transaction. The church doesn't care about line items. They care about commitment." I felt my stomach tighten. Pastor Dwyer called me. He said there's a $10,000 shortfall from our pledge. He clearly thinks I'm part of a $25,000 promise that I never made. Loretta's voice cooled. We've been part of that church for over 30 years. Your father and I have given more than money. We've given time, presence, service. Maybe they assumed the pledge was from all of us. And honestly, why are you even bringing this up now? You used to understand what it meant to be part of something bigger. I understand exactly what it means, I said. It means being erased when it suits someone else's narrative. She scoffed. This is what happens when you spend too much time with that friend of yours, always stirring up suspicion. I didn't respond. You want to talk about generosity. Where do you think your values came from? Who paid for your education? Who raised you to be the kind of woman who even has money to give? I stared out Maya's window, watching a dog chase birds along the sidewalk. You didn't raise me to lie. There was silence, then a sharp click. She had hung up. Minutes later, Iris texted, "She's devastated. You humiliated her. Maybe just apologize and smooth things over before it gets worse." Before it gets worse. I opened my laptop again. This time, I created a new folder, Church Financials. I uploaded my bank statements, pulled donation receipts, archived every confirmation email I'd kept without thinking. Each file felt like a line drawn in the sand. If they wanted to rewrite the story, they'd have to do it without my silence. I was halfway through updating the shelter's grant application when Dana, our director, knocked gently on my office door. She had that expression people wear when they're about to deliver something unpleasant but want to cushion the blow. "Can I talk to you for a second?" I followed her into the conference room, notebook still in hand. She closed the door behind us and motioned for me to sit. "I got a call this morning," she said. "Anonymous, but they claimed to be a concerned member of your church community." I felt the chill crawl into my spine. "They said you've been acting erratically, that you're unstable, possibly disruptive, that we should be aware." My breath caught, but I forced myself to stay calm. Did they give specifics? No. Just vague character smears. It didn't sound credible, Calla. Your work here speaks for itself. But I wanted you to know. I nodded slowly. "Thank you for telling me." After she left, I stared at the blank page in my notebook. I hadn't even told Dana about Easter, had kept it far away from my work life. But now, Loretta or someone close to her had decided to drag it across that line, not just into my personal space, but into my livelihood. That evening, I told Maya everything. "They're trying to make you look unhinged," she said. "That way, when you push back, it just confirms their narrative." I nodded. "They want to discredit me before I even get a chance to speak." She leaned forward. "Then you speak with receipts. Not emotion, paper trails, facts. I already had the folder, the emails, the voice message, the donor list. The anonymous call was something I couldn't prove, but the rest was solid." "You need to talk to someone," Maya said, "a professional." This stopped being about family a while ago. I hesitated, not because she was wrong, but because I already knew she was right. The next morning, I typed in the name she gave me, Julian Rhodes Attorney, Nonprofit and Family Financial Disputes. I stared at the contact form for a moment before clicking send. I didn't know what I was preparing for yet, but if they wanted to keep rewriting my story, they were about to learn I'd started writing it down. Julian Rhodes met with me on a quiet Thursday morning in a small office above a bookstore. He didn't offer empty sympathy or drawn-out affirmations, just a legal pad, a steady voice, and questions that cut to the center. "When was the last time your parents consulted you before committing your money?" "They never did," I said. "They assumed. Or pretended." He tapped his pen. "You've given $15,000 annually. They've taken credit for the full amount. And now they've interfered with your employment. That's not just manipulation. That's defamation and potentially fraud, especially if the misrepresented donations led to personal or financial gain." I hadn't used the word fraud out loud before. It sounded too big, too sharp. But coming from Julian, it felt measured, earned. He told me what to document, what to preserve, what to expect. Then he asked the question I hadn't been able to answer. "What outcome are you looking for?" "I want them to stop using me to build a reputation I didn't sign off on." He nodded. "Then let's put that in writing." That night, I sat at Maya's kitchen table and drafted the letter. Formal, clear, without apology. To the leadership of Grace Community Church. Please note that all financial contributions made under the name Calla Vance have been and will continue to be personal gifts made independently of any family entity. I respectfully request that any future recognition acknowledgments or correspondence regarding these contributions be addressed to me directly. I signed it, saved it as a PDF, and left it in a desktop folder labeled Disclosures. Then, I opened a second document, to Loretta and Edwin Vance. This is to formally notify you that I do not authorize you to speak on my behalf regarding financial matters, personal decisions, or any correspondence with third-party institutions, including Grace Community Church. Any commitments made using my name funds or presumed intentions do not reflect my consent and will not be honored. I reread it 3 times before closing the file without sending it. The silence afterward felt heavy, but not empty. Like a stillness before something shifted. For once, I wasn't reacting to them. I was preparing for myself. Iris called late, her voice low and breathless, like she wasn't sure she wanted me to answer. I stepped outside onto Maya's balcony to take it. "I shouldn't be calling," she said, "but I couldn't sleep." I waited. "You were right. About everything." The words came out strained, as if they hurt to say. She went on without prompting. "David overheard Mom and Dad talking last night. They were going over some paperwork for the church contract. That's when it clicked. The reason they've been inflating the family donation total, it wasn't just about appearances." My stomach tightened. What was it about? "They were trying to win a bid," she said. "The church's building fund project needed a supplier for materials. Dad's hardware store submitted a proposal. They padded their influence with donation numbers that included yours. And it worked." Iris hesitated. "They got the contract. It was approved by a committee Dad's part of. He didn't recuse himself." I leaned against the railing, heart pounding. "That's conflict of interest. I know." I didn't want to believe it, but David pulled up the meeting notes from the church website. I cross-referenced the dates. The contract was awarded right after Mom told the pastor our family would be increasing giving this year. And when I said I wasn't giving more, they panicked. That's why they've been pushing, and why they're trying to make you look unstable. She paused. I saved everything I could. Screenshots, receipts, the meeting minutes. I emailed them to you. Use them however you need. I stared into the dark street below. Why are you helping me now? Because I didn't know how far it had gone. And because I saw what they're willing to do to protect the lie. They're willing to destroy you to keep it going. I swallowed hard. You know this might break everything. Maybe it should, she said, if it was built on your silence. She hung up without goodbye. I opened her email. There it was, line by line, date by date, the evidence I hadn't expected anyone else to gather. I saved the attachments to the same folder where I kept my letters and bank statements. Then I opened a new document, gave it a name, and began preparing to add the next piece. The church office was colder than I remembered. Pastor Dwyer met me with a tight smile and a tremor in his handshake. Across from him sat Diane Larimore, the board president, her expression unreadable. I took the seat opposite them and folded my hands in my lap. I wasn't there for comfort. We appreciate you coming in, Calla Diane began. This meeting is overdue. Pastor Dwyer nodded, avoiding my eyes. We've been reviewing some concerning discrepancies, both financial and procedural. It appears your family's giving history was misrepresented in ways that influenced internal decisions. I said nothing. He cleared his throat. Specifically, the awarding of the materials contract to your father's store was based in part on an assumed annual donation of $25,000 from the Vance family, when in fact your parents gave 10. And I gave 15, I said. Pastor Dwyer nodded, finally meeting my gaze. Yes, that wasn't clear to us until now. We also weren't aware of the personal and professional consequences you've faced as a result. Diane leaned forward. We've rescinded the contract. Your father was informed this morning. He will no longer sit on the building committee, and we've initiated a broader audit of our vendor policies. There was a silence that felt heavier than apology. There's more, Pastor Dwyer said. I need to be honest. Your mother, Loretta, shared concerns with us about your well-being. She implied you were experiencing a personal crisis, that you might be Unstable. That's what led me to call your workplace." I took a breath, steady but cold. And did she provide any evidence for that claim, number, just context that at the time I trusted? He paused. I see now that trust was misplaced. He looked smaller than he had the last time I sat in that office when he'd praised Loretta during a Sunday sermon for her unwavering commitment. I didn't feel satisfaction, just clarity. Diane slid a typed page across the table. "This is a formal acknowledgement of the misrepresentation. We'll be issuing a correction in our next public report listing you as an independent donor, and a private letter of apology to your employer is being sent today." I folded the document and slipped it into my bag. I didn't thank them, not because I wasn't relieved, but because truth should never have required this much cost. I got the call on a Tuesday morning just before a staff meeting. It was Detective Amber Reyes from the Riverside Police Department. She was calm, professional, and precise. "Ms. Vance, your parents have filed a report alleging harassment and threats. We're required to follow up." I sat in stunned silence. "I haven't contacted them since Easter. I've reviewed the report," she said. "There's no supporting evidence, but I'd like to meet with you in person to document your side." That afternoon, I brought everything: emails, financial records, the contract documents Iris sent, even the timeline Julian had helped me draft. Julian came with me steady and unshakable, reminding me this wasn't retaliation. It was defense. Detective Reyes took notes as I spoke, asking careful questions but never treating me like a suspect. Halfway through, she paused and looked up. "Did you know your parents presented your donations as a family pledge in committee minutes?" I nodded. "That's how they got the contract." She flipped through the evidence again. "That's not just exaggeration. That's documented misrepresentation tied to a financial outcome." By the end of the meeting, she said she would be opening a formal investigation into misuse of influence and filing a false report. Outside the station, Maya hugged me before I could say anything. "They don't see what they're doing as betrayal," I whispered. "They think I'm the one who turned on them." "Of course they do," she said, "because they called it family when they meant ownership." I nodded slowly, and I said no. Later that night, I clicked open the folder labeled Disclosures. Then I opened the letter I hadn't sent and finally hit print. The news came on a Friday morning. Detective Reyes called to let me know that the warrants had been issued. Loretta was being charged with filing a false police report. Edwin faced charges for fraud and conflict of interest tied to the church contract. They were processed quietly, no handcuffs, no cameras, just paperwork and court dates. Grace Community released a statement the same afternoon. They would be updating their governance structure, separating donor acknowledgments from family groupings, and barring committee members from bidding on contracts. The changes were overdue. A week later, I received a letter in the mail signed by the full church board. It acknowledged my individual contributions for the past 6 years and apologized for their failure to protect me from misuse and misrepresentation. I read it twice, folded it, and placed it in the back of a drawer I no longer opened often. Maya asked if I'd ever go back. I shook my head. Some places only love you when you're silent. Once you speak, the welcome evaporates. That evening, I sat on my balcony with the sound of wind instead of hymns and the sense finally that my name belonged only to me. The new donor report came out quietly slipped into the back pages of the church bulletin someone forwarded to me out of habit. I almost didn't open it, but I did. There it was. Calla Vance, $15,000, no Vance family, no shared credit, no shadow of someone else's reputation. Just mine. I closed the file and leaned back in the quiet of my new apartment. The furniture was second-hand. The windows overlooked a noisy street. But every bill, every chair, every inch of space had been chosen, paid for, and claimed by me. Once a week, I volunteer at a local nonprofit that helps women untangle their finances from people who once claimed to love them. I don't share my story. I just listen, guide, and remind them that starting over is sometimes the most powerful kind of loyalty to yourself. I used to think love meant sacrifice. That silence proved devotion. But I've learned that real love doesn't demand your disappearance. It just asks for the truth. And the truth is, I was never ungrateful. I was just done being borrowed. What if being good was never the problem? but being quiet about how they used it was. And what if the cost of truth was finally worth your own name back?